The Alpha King found me running through the frozen woods with blood on my feet. He thought I was broken because I could not shift under the full moon. But when he looked into my eyes, he saw the truth. I was not a wolf at all. I was the thing wolves' prey never wakes up. For 20 years, his pack believed they killed a dangerous witch in these woods. They had no idea she was pregnant. They had no idea I survived. And they had no idea that every full moon since that night, I have been growing stronger, waiting, watching, planning my revenge. The Alpha King thinks he can save me. He thinks he can turn a monster back into a girl. But what he does not know is that his own father led the hunt that murdered my mother. What he does not know is that his enemies are coming to use me as a weapon. And what he does not know is that the choice I am about to make will decide whether his entire pack lives or dies. My name is Senna. I am the daughter of the witch your pack destroyed. And this is the story of how I became the one thing more terrifying than an alpha. I became the one thing that could save them. The girl was running when Kael found her. Blood streaked her bare feet, leaving dark prints in the frozen earth. Her dress hung in tatters, exposing skin that should have been blue with cold but instead flushed pink with exertion. The Alpha King stopped at the tree line, his wolf straining against his control, demanding he chase, he catch, he claim. But something felt wrong. She was not shifting. The full moon blazed overhead, and yet her human form remained stubbornly intact. Kael had ruled the Northern Territories for 8 years, and he had never seen a wolf resist the moon's call. It was impossible. The girl stumbled over a root and went down hard, her palms sinking into the mud. He heard her gasp, saw her shoulders heave with the effort of breathing. Then she looked back. Her eyes met his across the clearing, and Kael felt ice slide down his spine. Those eyes were wrong. They were not the amber of a wolf or the human colors of brown or blue or green. They were black. Completely black from edge to edge, like staring into an abyss. The girl scrambled to her feet and ran deeper into the woods, and Kael's instincts screamed at him to let her go. But he was Alpha. He had sworn to protect these lands from any threat. He shifted mid-stride, his bones snapping and reforming in seconds, his wolf surging forward with predatory focus. The scent hit him as soon as his paws touched the ground. She did not smell like wolf. She smelled like smoke and copper and something ancient, something that made his hackles rise and his lips peel back from his teeth. He found her at the edge of the ravine, trapped between the cliff and him. She turned slowly, her black eyes reflecting the moonlight like obsidian mirrors. When she spoke, her voice was layered, as if a dozen voices whispered beneath the surface of her words. "You should not have followed me." Kael shifted back to human form, his body tense and ready to fight. "What are you?" The girl tilted her head, and for a moment, something flickered across her face. Pain, he thought. Or perhaps loneliness so profound it looked like pain. "I am what your kind made," she said softly. "When you hunted my mother through these woods 20 years ago and tore her apart while I was still in her womb." Kael's blood went cold. He knew that hunt. Every wolf in the Northern Territories knew that hunt. They had killed a witch who had been cursing the pack, poisoning the water, causing stillbirths and madness. The witch had been pregnant. They had not known. "You survived," he said, his voice rough. The girl laughed, and the sound was like breaking glass. "Survived. No Alpha King. I died with her. But something else was born in that moment. Something that your moon cannot touch. Something that your wolf cannot smell properly. Something that has been waiting in these woods, growing stronger, learning to walk in this skin." She took a step toward him, and the temperature dropped so sharply that frost crept across the ground at her feet. I never shifted because I am not a wolf, Kael of the Northern Territories. I am the thing wolves should fear. I am vengeance given form. I am the daughter of your sin. The darkness around her began to move. It peeled away from the trees and the shadows, coalescing into shapes that were not quite animal and not quite human. Kael felt his wolf retreat deep inside him, whimpering. Every full moon, she continued, her black eyes boring into his, I grow stronger. Every full moon I remember what was done. And tonight, I finally have the power to make your pack understand what it means to lose everything. The shadow shapes lunged forward. Kael shifted instantly, but his wolf was sluggish with fear, and the shadows were faster. They wrapped around his legs, his throat, cold as death and strong as iron. The girl walked toward him, her bare feet leaving frost in her wake. She knelt beside his struggling wolf form and placed one small hand on his head. Her touch burned like ice. I could kill you now, she whispered. But that would be mercy. Instead, I will let you live. I will let you go back to your pack and tell them what hunts them now. I will let you feel the terror of knowing something is coming, something unstoppable, something born from your own brutality. She leaned closer, her lips nearly brushing his ear. Run, Alpha King. Run back to your pack and tell them the deep woods have a new predator. Tell them the witch's daughter has come of age. Tell them that the blood debt is due. The shadows released him all at once. Kael scrambled backward, his heart hammering, every instinct screaming at him to flee. The girl stood and turned away, walking toward the ravine's edge. You have 1 month, she called over her shoulder. 1 month to evacuate the innocent, the children, those who were not part of that hunt. After that, I will come for the guilty. And Kael. She looked back one final time. You were there that night. You were young, but you were there. I remember your scent. So when I come for the others, know that I am saving you for last. Then she stepped off the cliff and fell into the darkness below. Kael ran to the edge, his wolf eyes scanning the ravine. But there was nothing. No body, no sound. No trace she had ever been there except for the frost still glittering on the ground and the terror still coursing through his veins. He shifted and ran back toward pack lands, his mind racing. They had hunted a witch and created something far worse. They had killed a mother and given birth to a nightmare. And now the nightmare was coming home. Kael burst through the packhouse doors at dawn. His skin still slick with sweat and mud. The sentries had seen him coming, had felt the waves of panic rolling off their alpha like a physical force. Now the council chamber filled with his most trusted wolves, their faces tight with concern. Marcus, his beta, stood at his right hand, scarred and steady. Vera, the pack's head warrior, leaned against the far wall, her arms crossed over her chest. And at the head of the table sat his father, the former alpha, gray-haired and sharp-eyed despite his retirement. Speak, his father commanded. Kael told them everything. He watched their faces shift from confusion to disbelief to horror as he described the girl with black eyes, the shadows that moved like living things, the frost that followed her footsteps. When he finished, silence hung heavy in the room. Marcus broke it first. The witch's child. We thought she died with her mother. Vera pushed off the wall, her expression grim. 20 years we have had peace. 20 years without curses or plagues. And now this. Kael's father stood slowly, his joints creaking. He walked to the window and stared out at the forest that bordered their territory. I led that hunt, he said quietly. Your mother was pregnant with you, Kael. The witch had caused 3 stillbirths in as many months. We had no choice. There is always a choice, Kael said, his voice harder than he intended. His father turned, and for a moment, Kael saw genuine pain in those weathered eyes. Yes, and I chose to protect my pack, my pregnant mate, my unborn son. I would make the same choice again. Even knowing what it created, Kael demanded. Even now. Before his father could answer, the door slammed open. Ronan stood in the doorway, breathing hard, his clothes covered in road dust. Kael's stomach dropped. Ronan was the pack's eastern scout, stationed at the border between their territory and the Shadowfang pack. Their enemies. Alpha, Ronan gasped. The Shadowfang. They know. The room went cold. Know what? Vera snapped, but Kael already understood. His wolf had known the moment Ronan spoke. They know about the girl, Kael said flatly. Ronan nodded, still catching his breath. I was tracking their patrol last night when I heard them talking. They have a spy. Someone who saw you in the woods, who watched your encounter with her. They are planning something. I ran all night to get here first. Marcus slammed his fist on the table. Damien will use this. He has been waiting for an opportunity to challenge our pack's dominance for years. Kael's mind raced. Damien, the Shadowfang Alpha, was ruthless and ambitious. He had been testing their borders for months, probing for weakness. If he knew about the girl, about the threat she posed to the Northern Territories, he would absolutely exploit it. We need to find her first, Vera said. Bring her in, contain her somehow, before the Shadowfang can reach her. You cannot contain something like that, Kael said, remembering those black eyes, that layered voice. She is not just a witch. She is something else entirely. His father turned from the window. Then we kill her. Like we should have done 20 years ago. No. The word came out before Kael could stop it, surprising himself as much as the others. They all stared at him. No, his father repeated, his voice dangerous. Kael met his gaze steadily. She gave us 1 month. 1 month to evacuate the innocent. That means she has a code, a sense of justice, however twisted. She is not mindless. We can negotiate. Negotiate with a monster. Vera scoffed. She is a monster we created, Kael shot back. Our pack, our actions, our hunt. This is our responsibility. Marcus stepped forward, his expression thoughtful. If the Shadowfang reach her first, they will not try to negotiate. They will either try to kill her and fail, enraging her further, or worse, they will try to turn her against us. Use her as a weapon. The implications settled over the room like a shroud. A weapon like the girl could destroy their entire pack in a single night. Kael made his decision. I am going back into the deep woods. I am going to find her and try to talk to her. Marcus, you are in charge while I am gone. Vera, I want triple patrols on all borders, especially the eastern edge near Shadowfang territory. Ronan, get some rest. Then take 2 wolves and keep watch on Damien's movements. His father stepped into his path. You are walking into certain death. Then I die, Kael said simply. But I have to try. This threat began with our pack's actions. It should end with our pack's courage to face what we created. His father stared at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You have grown into a better alpha than I was. Oh. But take Marcus with you. No, Kael said. The pack needs him here. I do this alone. He left before anyone could argue further. The deep woods looked different in daylight. The ancient trees seemed to lean inward, their branches forming a canopy so thick that only scattered beams of sunlight pierced through. Kael moved carefully, all his senses straining. He was not tracking her. He did not need to. She would know he was here. She would come when she was ready. He found a clearing near the ravine where she had vanished and sat down to wait. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, then began its descent. Birds called in the distance, and small animals rustled through the undergrowth. Normal sounds, peaceful sounds. The darkness came suddenly. One moment, golden afternoon light filtered through the trees. The next, shadows poured into the clearing like spilled ink, and the temperature plummeted. Kael stood slowly, keeping his hands visible, his posture non-threatening. She materialized from the darkness itself. Today she wore different clothes, clean and whole, a simple black dress that seemed to absorb light. Her feet were still bare. Her eyes were still that bottomless black. "I told you to run, Alpha King," she said, her voice still carrying those underlying whispers. "I told you that you had 1 month. I came to talk," Kael said evenly. "Not to fight." She laughed, and the sound made the shadows writhe. "Talk? What could you possibly say that would matter? That you are sorry. That it was a mistake. That your father had no choice." "I came to listen," Kael corrected. "To hear your story. Your real story. Not the one my pack tells themselves to justify what they did." Something flickered in her expression. Surprise, perhaps. Or suspicion. "Why?" she asked, taking a step closer. "Why would the Alpha King want to hear the story of a dead witch's daughter?" "Because I am tired of being haunted by the past," Kael said honestly. "Because I have nightmares about that hunt, even though I was barely old enough to shift. Because I remember your mother's screams, and I have heard them echoing in my head for 20 years. The girl went very still. "You remember." "I remember everything," Kael said quietly. "I remember the way she begged us to spare her child. I remember my father saying that witch spawn could not be allowed to live. I remember the smell of blood and magic mixing in the air. And I remember thinking even then that we were making a terrible mistake." The shadows around her pulled back slightly. She studied him with those unreadable black eyes. "What was your mother's name?" she asked suddenly. The question caught him off guard. "Ilara. She died 5 years ago. Cancer." "Did she ever speak of the hunt?" Kael shook his head. "She refused to discuss it. Near the end, when the sickness had her in its grip, she told me she was glad she did not have long. She said the guilt was eating her alive anyway." The girl's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "My mother's name was Maeve," she said. "She was not from your territory. She came here fleeing persecution in the south. She had done nothing to your pack. The curses, the stillbirths, they were not her doing." Kael felt his blood turn to ice. "What?" "There was another witch in these woods," the girl continued. "An old one, cruel and twisted. She was the one poisoning your water, cursing your births. My mother discovered her and confronted her. They fought. The old witch died, but not before she cast a final curse, one that made it look like my mother was responsible for everything." "No," Kael whispered. "Your pack never investigated. Never questioned. They just assumed the stranger was guilty and hunted her down like an animal. Was 5 months pregnant with me. She ran for hours, begging for mercy, trying to explain. No one listened." The girl's voice remained steady, but Kael could hear the anguish beneath it. "When they finally cornered her, she used the last of her magic to save me. She poured everything she was, everything she could have been, into keeping me alive. She died knowing she had failed to protect me from the wolves, but succeeded in giving me a chance. She looked down at her hands, and Kael saw them trembling. I was born in blood and rage and innocence destroyed. I was born between life and death, neither fully in one world nor the other. And I have spent 20 years growing in the darkness, feeding on the injustice of it all, becoming something that should not exist. Kael took a careful step forward. I am sorry, he said, and meant it with every fiber of his being. Sorry is not enough, she said, but her voice had lost some of its edge. I know. But it is all I have to offer right now. That and the truth. You need to know that the Shadowfang pack has learned about you. They are coming. Her head snapped up. Coming. They have spies. They saw us last night. Their alpha, Damien, wants to use you as a weapon against my pack. He will try to manipulate you, promise you revenge, offer you the chance to destroy everyone who hurt your mother. The girl was quiet for a long moment. And why are you telling me this? Why warn me? I am your enemy. Because you deserve to know the truth, Kael said. About everything. About who really killed your mother. About who is trying to use you now. About what you are becoming. What I am becoming, she repeated. A weapon, Kael said bluntly. Right now you are letting your pain and rage control you. You are letting what was done to your mother define everything you are and everything you will be. Damien will feed that rage, nurture it, point it in whatever direction serves him best. You will become exactly what he wants. Tool. A thing to be wielded. The shadows around her surged violently, slamming into trees and tearing through bushes. Do not presume to tell me what I am becoming, she snarled, and all the voices beneath her voice rose to the surface, a chorus of fury. I am telling you because I have been there, Kael said, standing his ground even as the shadows whipped around him. When my mother died, I wanted to tear the world apart. I wanted something, anything, to blame. I nearly started a war with the Western Pax over a border dispute that meant nothing. Marcus stopped me. He made me see that I was letting grief control me, that I was becoming something my mother would have been ashamed of. The shadows stilled slightly. Your mother died of natural causes, the girl said. Mine was murdered. It is not the same. You are right, Kael agreed. It is not the same. Your pain is greater, your rage more justified. But the principle remains. Are you going to let what was done to her destroy any chance you have at being more than a weapon? More than a monster? I am already a monster, she whispered, and for the first time she sounded young. Vulnerable. Human. No, Kael said firmly. You are powerful. You are terrifying. You are dangerous. But you are not a monster. A monster would not have given my pack 1 month's warning. A monster would not have targeted only the guilty. A monster would not be standing here talking to me instead of ripping out my throat. She looked at him, and he thought he saw something shift in those black eyes. A flicker of something other than rage. What is your name? He asked gently. She hesitated, as if the question was a trap. Senna, she finally said. My mother called me Senna. It means thorn in the old language. She said I would be a thorn in the side of anyone who threatened those I loved. Senna, Kael repeated. That is a beautiful name. A strong name. A twig snapped in the forest behind him. Kael spun, every instinct screaming danger. Wolves poured into the clearing, at least a dozen of them, their eyes amber and their fur dark as midnight. Shadowfang. Damien himself led them, his massive black wolf form radiating dominance and barely controlled violence. He shifted to human as he entered the clearing, his smile sharp and cold. "Well, well," Damien said, his voice smooth as silk. "The Northern Alpha, alone and unguarded, consorting with the very creature that threatens his pack. How convenient." Kael moved instinctively, placing himself between Damien and Senna. "This is not your territory, Damien. You have no business here." "Oh, but I do," Damien replied, his eyes fixed on Senna. "You see, I have a proposition for the lovely lady. One that I think she will find very appealing." Senna stood motionless, her expression unreadable. The shadows around her had gone still, watchful. "I know what was done to you," Damien continued, addressing her directly. "I know about your mother, about the injustice, about the years you have spent alone in these woods. And I know that Kael's pack is responsible for all of it." "Get to the point," Senna said, her layered voice making several of Damien's wolves whimper. Damien's smile widened. "Join me. Help me destroy the Northern Territories pack. In return, I will give you everything you want. Revenge, power, a place to belong. You will never be alone again." Kael felt his heart hammering. This was the moment. This was where Senna would choose what she would become. She looked at Damien for a long moment, then at Kael, then back to Damien. "You are offering me revenge," she said slowly. "Yes," Damien confirmed. "But he offered me truth," she continued, nodding toward Kael. "And there is a difference." Damien's smile faltered. "What?" "You see me as a weapon," Senna said, her voice growing louder, the whispers beneath it rising. "Something to be aimed and fired. You do not care about my mother or my pain or my justice. You care about your ambition, your territory, your power." The shadows began to move again, faster now, angry. "I have spent 20 years alone in the darkness," Senna said, taking a step toward Damien. 20 years listening to the wolves howl and the trees whisper and the magic sing. "And do you know what I learned?" Damien backed up a step, his wolves growling nervously. "I learned that everyone wants to use me," Senna continued. "Everyone sees what I can do and thinks about how it can serve them. But I am not a tool. I am not a weapon. I am a girl who lost her mother, who was born in blood and pain, who has been trying to figure out who she is supposed to be." She turned to look at Kael. "You were right. I was becoming exactly what everyone expected me to be. Monster. A thing of rage and revenge. But my mother did not die so that I could be a weapon." The shadows exploded outward, slamming into Damien and his wolves. They yelped and scattered, racing back toward their territory with their tails between their legs. Damien himself was thrown 20 feet, crashing into a tree hard enough to crack the bark. He scrambled to his feet, blood trickling from his mouth, his eyes wide with genuine fear. "This is not over," he snarled at Kael. Then he shifted and ran, disappearing into the forest. Silence fell over the clearing. Senna stood in the center, breathing hard, the shadows slowly retreating back to their natural places. She looked at Kael. "I still want justice," she said. "My mother's death still demands an answer. But I want real justice, not revenge. I want truth, not destruction." Kael nodded slowly. "Then help me find it. Help me prove that another which was responsible for the curses. Help me make sure the truth is known. And then, together, we can figure out what justice actually looks like." Senna studied him for a long moment. "Why should I trust you?" "Because I am the only one who has told you the truth without trying to use you," Kael said simply. "Because I am offering you partnership, not servitude. And because I think my pack needs to face what we did, needs to understand the cost of our assumptions and our fear. Senna was quiet, her black eyes searching his face. Finally, she held out her hand. It was small and pale and looked almost fragile in the fading light. Kael took it, feeling the chill of her skin, the power thrumming beneath the surface. 1 month, she said. You have 1 month to prove that another witch was responsible. If you cannot, then justice will be served my way. Agreed, Kael said. As they stood there, hands clasped, the sun broke through the canopy above. Light fell on Senna's face, and for just a moment, her eyes flickered. The black receded, just slightly, revealing the barest hint of green underneath. Human green. Her mother's eyes, perhaps. Then the darkness returned, but Kael had seen enough. Senna was not lost. Not yet. There was still something human in her, buried deep beneath the rage and the power and the pain. Something worth saving. He just had to figure out how to reach it before the month was up and the darkness consumed her completely. Kael returned to Pack Lands with Senna at his side, and the reaction was immediate. Wolves scattered as they approached, mothers pulling their children inside, warriors reaching for weapons they did not draw. The fear was palpable, thick as smoke in the air. Marcus met them at the border, his expression carefully neutral, but Kael could see the tension in his beta's shoulders. Alpha, Marcus said, his eyes flicking to Senna and then quickly away. The council is waiting. Let them wait, Kael said. First, I need a place for Senna to stay. Somewhere secure but comfortable. Somewhere she will not be disturbed. Marcus hesitated. Kael, the pack is terrified. Bringing her here, into our territory. It looks like you have lost your mind. Then it looks accurate, Kael replied. Because only a madman would think this plan has any chance of working. But it is the right thing to do, and I am still Alpha, so it will be done. Senna had not spoken since they entered Pack Lands. She stood beside Kael, her black eyes taking in everything, the shadows around her feet writhing like living things. Several pack members had gathered at a distance, watching with a mixture of terror and fascination. There is the old lodge, Marcus finally said. At the northern edge of the territory. It has not been used since your grandmother died, but it is still maintained. Isolated enough that she will have privacy, close enough that we can respond if needed. If I needed to be responded to, your wolves would already be dead, Senna said quietly, and several of the watching pack members flinched. Marcus went pale but held his ground. The lodge will work, Kael said quickly. Show us. They walked through the territory in tense silence. Wolves watched from windows and doorways, their eyes following Senna's every movement. Children whispered behind their mothers' skirts. An elderly wolf spat on the ground as they passed, and Kael heard him mutter something about abominations. Senna heard it too. The shadows around her feet surged forward, reaching toward the old wolf like grasping hands. Senna, Kael said softly. She stopped, the shadows retreating. They hate me, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. They fear you, Kael corrected. There is a difference. Is there? She asked, turning to look at him. They hated my mother too. Fear and hate look the same from where I stand. Kael had no answer for that. The lodge appeared through the trees, a sturdy structure of stone and timber. It had been his grandmother's sanctuary, the place she retreated to when the demands of being a former Luna became too much. Marcus unlocked the door and stepped back, letting Kael and Senna enter first. Inside, everything was exactly as Kael remembered. Furniture covered in white sheets, bookshelves lining the walls, a massive fireplace dominating one end of the room. Dust motes danced in the sunlight streaming through the windows. "It needs cleaning," Marcus said. "I will send someone." "No," Senna said sharply. "No one enters this space but me. I will clean it myself." Marcus looked at Kael, who nodded. "Respect her wishes. Have supplies delivered to the door. Food, clothing, whatever she needs. But no one crosses the threshold without her explicit permission." "Understood," Marcus said, though his expression suggested he thought Kael had lost his mind. "Leave us," Kael said. "I will return to the pack house shortly." Marcus hesitated, clearly wanting to argue, but finally nodded and left. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Senna walked through the room, her fingers trailing over covered furniture. She stopped at the bookshelf, tilting her head to read the spines. "Your grandmother liked poetry," she observed. "She said it helped her remember that wolves were not just beasts," Kael replied. "That we had souls worth cultivating." Senna pulled a book from the shelf, blowing dust off the cover. "The collected works of Mary Oliver. I know this poet. My mother used to read her poems to me when I was still in the womb. She said the rhythm would help me feel safe." Her voice cracked on the last word. Kael watched as she clutched the book to her chest, her shoulders shaking. "Senna," he said gently. "I miss her," Senna whispered, and suddenly she sounded exactly like what she was. A 20-year-old girl who had lost her mother before she ever had a chance to know her. "I miss her every single day. I miss the sound of her voice in my dreams. I miss the warmth I felt when I was still inside her. I miss everything I never got to have." The shadows around her were still now, no longer writhing with rage. They simply pooled at her feet like dark water. Kael crossed the room slowly, giving her space to pull away if she wanted. She did not. He stood beside her, not touching, just present. "My mother used to say that grief is love with nowhere to go," he said quietly. "That it is not something you get over, but something you learn to carry." "How do you carry 20 years of grief?" Senna asked, looking at him with those black eyes that now glistened with unshed tears. "One day at a time," Kael said. "And not alone. You do not have to do this alone anymore, Senna." A single tear traced down her cheek, and where it fell, frost spread across the wooden floor. Senna stared at it, then at Kael. "I do not know how to be around people. I have been alone for so long. I do not know how to trust or hope or believe that anything good can happen. All I know is anger and pain and the need to make someone pay for what was taken from me." "Then we will figure it out together," Kael said. "You have 1 month to prove another which was responsible. I have 1 month to help you remember that you are more than your rage. We are both trying to save something. Maybe we can help each other." Senna looked at him for a long moment, searching his face for deception or manipulation, or any sign that he was just another person trying to use her. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her, because she nodded slowly. 1 month, she agreed. "Starting now." Kael left her in the lodge and returned to the pack house as the sun began to set. The council was indeed waiting, and they were not happy. His father stood the moment Kael entered the room. "Have you lost your mind?" he roared. "You brought that creature into our territory. You gave her shelter. What were you thinking?" "I was thinking that we need to find the truth," Kael said calmly. "And that requires time and cooperation. Senna has agreed to give us 1 month to prove another which was responsible for the curses. In exchange, we provide her safety and resources." "She is manipulating you," Vera snapped. "She is dangerous and unstable, and you are playing directly into her hands. She is alone and grieving and more human than any of you want to admit," Kael shot back. Yes, she is powerful. Yes, she is dangerous. But she is also a victim of our pack's mistakes, and we owe her the truth. His father slammed his hand on the table. We owe her nothing. Her mother was a witch who threatened our pack. Her mother was innocent, Kael said, and the room went silent. What? Marcus said slowly. Kael told them everything Senna had revealed about the old witch, about the curse that framed Maeve, about the injustice of the hunt. As he spoke, he watched the color drain from his father's face. No, his father whispered. We investigated. We were certain. You were wrong, Kael said bluntly. And an innocent woman died because you were too quick to judge, too eager to find someone to blame. Now we have 1 month to prove it, or Senna will have her revenge. And I will not blame her if she does. Vera stepped forward. Even if we prove another witch was responsible, that does not change what the girl is. She is a threat. She will always be a threat. Then we find a way to help her control it, Kael said. We find a way to give her a life beyond vengeance. Or we become exactly what she thinks we are. Monsters who destroy anything we do not understand. Marcus cleared his throat. How do we prove another which was responsible? Has been 20 years. Any evidence is long gone. Not necessarily, said a voice from the doorway. Everyone turned. An elderly woman stood there, leaning heavily on a carved wooden cane. Her hair was white as snow, her face lined with age, but her eyes were sharp and clear. Kael recognized her immediately. Elder Mira, he said, bowing his head respectfully. Mira had been the pack's healer before she retired 10 years ago. She had also been one of the few who opposed the hunt, though she had been overruled by the Alpha and his council. I have been listening to the whispers in this pack house all day, Mira said, her voice surprisingly strong. And I think it is time I spoke up about what I know. She entered the room slowly, and Marcus rushed to pull out a chair for her. I was there the night of the hunt, Mira continued. I saw what happened, and I tried to tell your father that something was wrong, but he would not listen. Kael's father went very still. What do you mean something was wrong? Kael asked. Mira looked at him with sad eyes. The witch who died that night, Maeve, she was covered in defensive wounds. Claw marks and burns that did not come from wolves. She had been in a fight before your hunting party ever found her. Magical fight. I told your father that we should investigate further, that there might be another witch involved, but he said it did not matter. That one dead witch was enough. The room was silent as a tomb. Why did you not speak up before? Vera demanded. I did, Mira said sharply. I spoke up then, and I was told to be silent or leave the pack. I spoke up at the next council meeting, and I was removed from my position as healer. I spoke up one final time, and your father threatened to exile me. So I stopped speaking. But I never forgot. Kael's father had gone white as bone. Mira, Save it, Mira said, waving a hand dismissively. I am old, and I have no interest in your apologies. But the girl deserves the truth, and this pack deserves to face what it did. So I am telling you now there is proof. If you know where to look. What proof? Marcus asked urgently. Mira reached into her pocket and pulled out a small leather journal, its pages yellowed with age. I kept notes, she said. Every strange occurrence in the territory for the year before and after the hunt. The pattern is clear if you know what to look for. The curses did not stop immediately after Maeve died. They continued for another 3 weeks. Then they stopped suddenly, without explanation. Kael took the journal carefully, opening it to scan the cramped handwriting. "This is incredible," he murmured. "This is proof that Maeve could not have been responsible." "There is more," Mira said. "The old Thornwood Grove, where the ancient witches used to gather before the wolves drove them out centuries ago. I went there a month after the hunt, and I found evidence of recent habitation. Someone had been living there, practicing dark magic. The entire grove reeked of it." "Why did you not tell anyone?" Kael demanded. "I tried," Mira said tiredly. "Your father refused to listen. He said the matter was closed, that reopening it would only cause more pain. So I documented everything in my journal and waited. Waited for the day when someone would finally be willing to hear the truth." She looked at Kael with an expression that was almost proud. "You are that someone, Alpha. You are brave enough to face what your father was not. Do not waste this chance." Kael gripped the journal tightly. "The Thornwood Grove. Can you show us where it is?" "I can," Mira said. "But we should go at night. The grove holds old magic, the kind that only reveals itself under moonlight. And you should bring the girl. She will be able to sense things that we cannot." "Absolutely not," Vera protested. "It is too dangerous to take her anywhere near a place of power like that." "She is already a place of power," Mira said calmly. "And if you want the truth, you need someone who can read the magical residue. The girl is your best option." Kael made his decision. "We go tonight. Marcus, you come with me. Vera, you stay here and manage the pack. Father, you are coming too. You need to see this with your own eyes." His father looked like he wanted to argue, but he simply nodded, looking older than Kael had ever seen him. "I will get the girl," Kael said, and left before anyone could object. The walk to the lodge was short, but Kael's mind raced with possibilities. If they could prove Maeve's innocence, would it be enough to satisfy Senna's need for justice? Or would she still demand blood for the years she spent alone, for the childhood stolen from her, for the mother she never knew? He knocked on the lodge door. "Senna, it is Kael. I need to speak with you." The door opened, and Senna stood there looking more human than she had before. She had cleaned herself up, found clothes in the wardrobes that fit reasonably well. Her hair was no longer tangled with leaves and mud. But her eyes were still that endless black. "What is it?" she asked. "We have a lead," Kael said. "Evidence that might prove your mother's innocence. But we need your help to confirm it." Her eyes widened slightly. "Where?" "The Thornwood Grove. It is an ancient place, full of old magic. Our pack healer believes the real witch lived there, the one who framed your mother. We need you to come with us, to use your abilities to read what happened there." Senna stepped out of the lodge, the shadows around her feet stirring with anticipation. "When do we leave?" "As soon as the moon rises," Kael said. "There is something else you should know. My father is coming with us. He led the hunt that killed your mother." Senna's expression went cold. "Then I will finally get to look the man in the eyes and see if he has any remorse for what he did." "Senna," Kael said carefully, "I need you to promise me something. No matter what we find in the grove, no matter what you feel when you see my father, you will not hurt him. Not yet. Give us the full month we agreed upon." She studied him for a long moment. "Why do you defend him?" "He is responsible for your mother's grief, for the guilt that ate at her until she died. He is responsible for everything. Because he is still my father," Kael said simply. "And because I believe people can change, can grow, can learn from their mistakes. If I did not believe that, I would not be standing here trying to help you." Senna looked away, her jaw tight. Fine. I will not hurt him. But he will answer my questions and he will do it honestly. Or the deal is off. Agreed, Kael said. They gathered at the edge of pack territory as the moon rose, full and bright. Kael's father stood stiffly, refusing to look at Senna. Marcus stayed close to Kael, his body tense and ready. Mira leaned on her cane, her eyes bright with determination despite her age. And Senna stood slightly apart from them all, her black eyes reflecting the moonlight, the shadows around her stretching and reaching like eager hounds. The grove is an hour's walk into the deep woods, Mira said. Stay close and do not wander from the path. The old magic there does not take kindly to trespassers. They walked in silence, the forest alive with night sounds. Owls hooted, small creatures scurried through the undergrowth, and somewhere in the distance a wolf howled. Kael watched Senna as they walked. She moved through the darkness like she was part of it, her steps silent, her presence both there and not there. The shadows seemed to part for her, welcoming her home. After what felt like much longer than an hour, Mira stopped. There, she said, pointing ahead. The thornwood grove materialized out of the darkness like something from a nightmare. Ancient trees twisted together, their branches forming a natural cathedral. The ground was covered in a thick carpet of moss that glowed faintly in the moonlight. And in the center of the grove stood a stone altar, its surface stained dark with old blood. Senna gasped, her hand flying to her chest. I can feel it, she whispered. The magic here. It is old and angry and hungry. She walked forward as if in a trance, drawn to the altar. Kael followed close behind, ready to grab her if needed. Senna reached out and placed her palm flat on the altar stone. The reaction was immediate and violent. Light exploded from the stone, bright as day, and Senna screamed. Images flooded through her mind, through her very soul, and Kael, touching her shoulder, saw them too. An old witch, her face twisted with malice, dancing around this altar. The same witch cursing the northern pack, poisoning their water, laughing as mothers wept over stillborn children. Then a different scene. Maeve, young and beautiful and heavily pregnant, confronting the old witch. A battle of magic, fierce and desperate. Maeve winning, the old witch dying, but not before casting one final curse. A curse that would make it seem like Maeve had done everything, that would paint her as the villain, that would ensure her death. And finally the hunt. Wolves surrounding Maeve as she begged, pleaded, tried to explain. Kael's father, younger and harder, giving the order. The attack. Maeve's magic flaring one last time, not to defend herself, but to protect the child in her womb. The moment of her death, and the moment of Senna's birth. Two souls diverging, one fading into darkness, one clinging desperately to life. The visions stopped as suddenly as they had started. Senna collapsed and Kael caught her. She was shaking, tears streaming down her face, and for the first time since he had met her, her eyes were not completely black. They flickered between black and green, as if fighting for dominance. It is true, she gasped. Everything I told you is true. My mother was innocent. She died trying to save your pack. And no one ever knew. Kael's father had fallen to his knees, his face buried in his hands. What have I done? He whispered. What have I done? Mira stood over him, her expression sad but unsurprised. You did what you thought was right based on incomplete information. But that does not change the consequences. An innocent woman died. A child was orphaned before she was even born. And now, 20 years later, we are all paying the price. Senna pushed herself upright, standing on shaking legs. She walked over to Kael's father and looked down at him. "Look at me," she commanded, her voice still layered but no longer quite so inhuman. He raised his head and Kael saw tears on his face. "I am sorry," his father said hoarsely. "I am so sorry. I failed your mother. Failed you. I failed my own pack by refusing to see the truth." Senna stared at him for a long, terrible moment. Then she spoke, and her words carried the weight of 20 years of pain. "Your apology does not bring her back. Does not give me the childhood I lost. It does not erase the years I spent alone in the dark, becoming a monster because I had nothing else to become." "I know," Kael's father said. "I know, and I will carry that guilt until the day I die." Senna closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, they were more green than black. "But my mother died protecting your pack. She died trying to stop the real threat. And she used her last breath to save me, not because she wanted me to be a weapon of vengeance, but because she loved me and wanted me to have a chance at life." She looked at Kael. "You were right. I was letting rage define me. I was becoming exactly what everyone expected. But my mother deserves better than that. She deserves to be remembered for her courage, not for the injustice of her death." "What are you saying?" Kael asked softly. Senna took a deep breath. "I am saying that the month is over. You found the proof. My mother is vindicated. And now I have a choice to make about what kind of person I want to be. What kind of legacy I want to honor." She turned back to Kael's father. "I will not kill you. I will not destroy your pack. But you will do something for me. You will tell the truth. You will tell every wolf in the Northern Territories what really happened. You will make sure my mother is remembered as a hero, not a villain. Can you do that?" Kael's father nodded, tears still streaming down his face. "Yes, I swear it. On my life and my honor, I will make sure everyone knows the truth." Senna nodded once, then turned and walked away from the grove. Kael hurried after her. "Senna, wait." She stopped but did not turn around. "What happens now?" Kael asked. "Now," Senna said quietly, "I figure out how to be something other than angry. How to be someone my mother would be proud of. And I do not know how to do that. I have no idea where to even start." Kael moved to stand beside her. "You start by not doing it alone. You let people help you. You give yourself time to grieve and heal. And you remember that you are more than what was done to you." Senna finally looked at him, and her eyes were almost entirely green now, with just the faintest shadow of black at the edges. "Will you help me?" she asked, and she sounded so young and lost that Kael's heart ached. "Yes," he said without hesitation. "For as long as you need." Behind them, the grove began to darken as the old magic, satisfied that the truth had finally been revealed, settled back into sleep. The moon shone overhead, bright and full and clean. And for the first time in 20 years, Senna stood under it and felt something other than rage. She felt hope. 3 weeks had passed since the night in the Thornwood Grove. 3 weeks of Senna learning to live among the pack, to walk through their territory without the shadows consuming everything she touched. 3 weeks of progress, fragile and tentative, like ice forming over a river in early winter. Kael's father had kept his promise. He had gathered the entire pack and told them the truth about Maeve, about the real witch, about the terrible mistake that had cost an innocent woman her life. Some had wept. Others had grown silent with shame. But all of them had listened, and when it was done, they had built a memorial stone at the edge of the deep woods, carved with Maeve's name and the words "Protector of the Pack." Senna visited it every morning. Kael often found her there at dawn, sitting cross-legged before the stone, speaking softly to a mother she had never known. The shadows still followed her, still writhed at her feet when her emotions ran high, but they were gentler now, more controlled. Her eyes had shifted too, spending more time green than black, though the darkness never fully left. It was a part of her, Mira had explained. A consequence of being born between life and death, a mark of the magic that had saved her. She would carry it forever. But she was learning to carry it with grace instead of rage. The pack was learning too. Children who had once hidden from her now watched with curious eyes. Warriors who had feared her began to nod in greeting. It was slow, this healing, but it was happening. And then the Shadowfang attacked. It happened on the night of the new moon, when the darkness was complete and the pack's wolf senses were at their weakest. Damien had been planning this for weeks, gathering allies from rival packs, promising them territory and power if they helped him destroy the northern territories once and for all. He had waited until Senna seemed settled, seemed distracted by her newfound peace. Then he struck with overwhelming force. Kael was in his office when the alarm howled through the pack house. He shifted and ran, Marcus at his side, racing toward the southern border where the sounds of battle already echoed through the night. The scene that greeted them was carnage. At least 50 wolves poured through the border, their eyes gleaming with bloodlust. The northern pack's warriors fought desperately, but they were outnumbered and caught by surprise. Kael threw himself into the battle, his wolf ripping through enemies with practiced efficiency. But even as he fought, he knew they were losing. There were too many. Damien himself appeared through the chaos, his massive black wolf form heading straight for Kael. They collided in a fury of teeth and claws, two alphas fighting for dominance. Damien was strong and fast and ruthless. He had been waiting years for this moment, and he fought with the desperation of someone who knew this was his only chance. Kael felt ribs crack as Damien slammed him into a tree, tasted blood as fangs tore into his shoulder. His vision swam, but he kept fighting, kept moving, because if he fell, the pack fell with him. Then he heard Marcus scream. Kael turned his head just in time to see 3 enemy wolves drag his beta down, their teeth sinking deep. Vera was surrounded, fighting valiantly but bleeding from a dozen wounds. His father had shifted to protect a group of children, his aging wolf body already covered in blood. They were going to die. All of them. The pack he had sworn to protect was going to be slaughtered, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Damien's jaws closed around Kael's throat, not quite breaking the skin but applying enough pressure to make breathing impossible. This was it. This was how he died. Then the temperature dropped so fast that frost formed on every surface in seconds. The fighting stopped as every wolf, enemy and ally alike, froze in place. Because the darkness was moving. It poured out of the deep woods like a living tide, like the night itself had decided to take physical form. And at its center walked Senna. She had been in the lodge when the attack began, far from the battle. But she had felt it, had felt Kael's pain and fear through some connection they had forged over the past 3 weeks. And she had made a choice. She wore the black dress she had worn the first night Kael met her, and her feet were bare against the frozen ground. Her eyes were completely black again, but this time it was different. This time, the darkness was not consuming her. She was commanding it. "Release him," Senna said, her voice echoing with power that made the earth tremble. Damien's wolf reluctantly let go of Kael's throat, backing away with a whimper. Every wolf in the clearing was staring at her now, enemy and ally, all of them frozen by a fear so primal it bypassed thought entirely. "You came to my territory," Senna continued, walking forward slowly. "You attacked people I have sworn to protect. You thought I had grown weak, grown soft, grown tame." The shadows around her rose up, towering into the sky, taking shapes that were nightmarish and beautiful all at once. "You were wrong." She raised her hand, and the shadows surged forward. But they did not attack the northern pack. They wrapped around the Shadowfang wolves, around Damien's allies, lifting them off the ground like a giant's hand closing around insects. The enemy wolves struggled and howled, but it was useless. "I could kill you all," Senna said, looking directly at Damien, who had shifted back to human form and now stood naked and trembling. "I could tear you apart the way you would have torn apart these people. I could make you suffer the way I suffered, the way my mother suffered. And part of me wants to. Part of me still burns with that rage." She clenched her fist, and the shadows tightened. Bones cracked. Wolves screamed. "But I am not my rage anymore," Senna said, her voice softening. "I am my mother's daughter. And my mother died protecting the innocent, even when the innocent had wronged her. So I will give you the same choice she gave this pack 20 years ago." She looked at each of the captured wolves in turn. "Leave. Take your allies and go back to your territories and never return. Or stay and face the full weight of what I have become. Choose now." The shadows released them all at once. The enemy wolves hit the ground hard, gasping and whimpering. For a moment no one moved. Then Damien scrambled to his feet and ran. He shifted mid-stride and disappeared into the darkness, his tail between his legs. The other wolves followed, a panicked stampede of defeated enemies fleeing for their lives. Within seconds, the clearing was empty except for the northern pack. Silence fell, broken only by the sound of labored breathing and quiet whimpering from the wounded. Senna stood in the center of it all, the shadows slowly retreating back to their natural places. Her eyes faded from black to green, and suddenly she looked exhausted. Kael shifted to human form and walked toward her, ignoring the pain in his shoulder and ribs. "Senna," he said softly. She looked at him and he saw tears streaming down her face. "I almost killed them," she whispered. "I wanted to so badly. I could feel the rage trying to take control again, telling me to make them pay, to make them hurt. But then I thought about my mother, about what she would want, about the person I promised to try to become." "You chose mercy," Kael said, reaching out to take her hand. "That is the strongest thing anyone can do." Senna shook her head. "It does not feel strong. Feels terrifying. Because now I have to keep choosing it every single day for the rest of my life. And I do not know if I am strong enough." "You are," said a voice behind them. They turned to see Mira approaching, her cane tapping against the frozen ground. Behind her stood Marcus, limping but alive. Vera bleeding but standing. Kael's father, his old wolf body trembling with exhaustion. And behind them the entire pack. Mothers with children on their hips. Warriors with weapons still in hand. Elders who had lived through decades of pack politics. All of them looking at Senna not with fear, but with something else. Something that looked almost like reverence. "You saved us," Marcus said, his voice hoarse. "You did not have to. We are the pack that killed your mother. But you saved us anyway." A young mother stepped forward, holding a small child who could not have been more than 3 years old. "Thank you," she said simply. "My daughter would be dead without you." More voices joined in, a chorus of gratitude and wonder. Senna stood frozen, overwhelmed by the outpouring of emotion. She had spent 20 years alone, hated, feared, believing that she was a monster who could never be anything else. And now these people, these wolves who should have been her enemies, were thanking her. Were seeing her as a savior. Were looking at her like she mattered. Like she belonged. Kael's father approached slowly. His human form covered in wounds. He stopped in front of Senna and did something that shocked everyone. He knelt. "You are more than I deserve," he said, his voice breaking. "More than this pack deserves. You are everything your mother was and more. She would be so proud of the woman you have become." Senna's tears fell faster now, and her shoulders shook with silent sobs. Kael pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her as she finally allowed herself to break down. To grieve. Feel. To be human. The pack gave them space, but they did not leave. They formed a circle around Kael and Senna, a protective barrier of bodies and warmth and acceptance. And as the sun began to rise over the deep woods, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, something miraculous happened. The shadows that had followed Senna for 20 years, that had been her only companions in the darkness, began to change. They did not disappear. They would never fully disappear. But they softened, becoming less like grasping hands and more like a cloak. A part of her power, yes, but no longer her prison. Senna pulled back from Kael's embrace and looked around at the pack surrounding them. Her pack now, in a way she had never imagined possible. "I do not know how to do this," she admitted. "How to be part of something. How to trust. How to hope. I am still broken in so many ways." "Then we will be broken together," Kael said. "And maybe, piece by piece, we will figure out how to heal." He turned to address the pack, his alpha voice carrying across the clearing. "This woman saved our lives tonight. She chose mercy when she had every right to choose vengeance. She honored her mother's legacy and showed us what true strength looks like. From this day forward, Senna is under the protection of the Northern Territories. She is pack." The wolves howled in unison, a sound of acceptance and welcome that echoed through the forest. Senna closed her eyes and more tears fell. But these were different tears. Not tears of rage or pain or loneliness. Tears of relief. Of belonging. Of finally coming home. Over the following months, Senna integrated into pack life slowly but steadily. She helped Mira in the healing lodge, discovering that her connection to death gave her an unusual ability to sense and soothe pain. She trained with Vera, learning to channel her power in ways that protected rather than destroyed. She spent long hours with Kael, walking through the territory, talking about everything and nothing, building a friendship that felt like it might become something more given time. And every morning, she visited her mother's memorial stone. But now she was not alone. Pack members joined her, bringing flowers and tokens of respect. Children asked her to tell stories about the mother they had wronged. And slowly, Maeve's memory transformed from a source of pain into a source of pride. 6 months after the battle, on the night of the full moon, Senna stood at the edge of Pack lands and looked up at the sky. The moon blazed overhead, calling to every wolf in the territory. She felt its pull, but different now. Not a demand to shift, because that was not her nature, but an invitation to embrace who she was. All of who she was. Kael stood beside her, his wolf form magnificent in the moonlight. "Are you ready?" he asked, his wolf voice rumbling through their mental link. Senna smiled. "I am." She closed her eyes and let go. Let go of the rage that had sustained her for so long. Let go of the loneliness that had defined her existence. Let go of the belief that she was only a monster, only a weapon, only a thing to be feared. And when she opened her eyes, They glowed with an inner light that was neither fully black nor fully green, but something in between. A perfect balance of darkness and humanity. The shadows rose around her, but they were beautiful now. They danced and swirled like living art, responding to her will, becoming whatever she needed them to be. Wings that could carry her through the night sky. Shields that could protect those she loved. Hands that could heal as easily as they could harm. She was still powerful, still dangerous, still marked by the circumstances of her birth. But she was also kind and brave and choosing every single day to be more than her pain. The pack gathered around her, wolves of all sizes and ages, and together they ran through the territory. Senna moved with them, not as a wolf but as something else entirely. Something unique. Something that had been born from tragedy but had chosen to become a guardian. As dawn broke over the deep woods, Senna stood once more before her mother's memorial. Kael had shifted back to human form and stood beside her, his hand finding hers. "Do you think she would be proud?" Senna asked softly. "I know she would be," Kael replied. "You took the worst thing that ever happened to you and turned it into something beautiful. You chose life over death, hope over despair, love over hate. That is the greatest gift you could give her." "Memory." Senna nodded, placing her free hand on the cold stone. "I love you, Mother," she whispered. "I never got to know you, but I carry you with me every day. In my name, in my power, in my choices. You died protecting the innocent, and I will spend my life doing the same. I promise." The wind picked up, rustling through the trees, and for just a moment, Senna could have sworn she heard a woman's voice carried on the breeze. A voice that said, "I am so proud of you, my little thorn." Tears fell, but they were good tears. Healing tears. Kael pulled her close, and together they watched the sun rise over the territory that had once been her enemy and was now her home. The deep woods held many secrets, many old magics, many dark histories. But now it also held something else. It held a girl who had been born in blood and raised in shadows, who had every reason to become a monster but had chosen to become a hero instead. A girl who had learned that the strongest power was not the ability to destroy, but the courage to forgive. A girl who had discovered that even the darkest night eventually gives way to dawn. And in that dawn, standing between the forest and the pack, between darkness and light, between rage and redemption, Senna finally understood what her mother had known all along. That she was never meant to be a weapon. She was meant to be a bridge. A bridge between two worlds, two magics, two ways of being. She was the daughter of a witch and the protector of wolves. She was darkness and light intertwined. She was vengeance transformed into justice. She was everything her mother had died to create, and everything her mother had hoped she would become. She was Senna, and she was finally, beautifully, courageously free. The story of the alpha who found a girl in the deep woods and discovered that her inability to shift was not a weakness but a different kind of strength would be told for generations. It would be whispered around fires on cold nights. It would be sung in the old songs that celebrated heroes and second chances. It would be remembered as the moment when one pack learned that monsters are not born but made, and that redemption is always possible for those brave enough to choose it. But for Senna it was not a story. It was simply her life. A life that had begun in tragedy but had been rewritten, word by painful word, choice by difficult choice, into something that honored both the mother who died and the girl who lived. And as she stood there in the morning light, surrounded by people who loved her, protected by the pack who had once destroyed everything she should have had, Senna smiled. Because she had learned the greatest truth of all. That the deepest wounds can become the strongest scars. That the darkest nights can teach you to cherish the dawn. and that sometimes the greatest power in the world is not the ability to never fall, but the courage to stand back up, dust yourself off, and choose to be better than what tried to break you. She was her mother's daughter. She was the deep woods guardian. She was the Alpha's unexpected salvation. But most importantly, she was herself. Broken and healing. Powerful and gentle. Dark and light. Human and other. All of it all at once forever. And that was exactly who she was meant to be.